Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you are watching or listening to this, and welcome to Link Up Leaders, your direct link to leaders in supply chain and e-commerce. My name is Lisa Kinski. I'm your producer and co-host, and joined as always by Francois Jeffrey. Francois, how are you today?
I'm doing better.
Good.
Like I told you, lost my furry buddy over the weekend after 12 years. So
I didn't know if you wanted to bring that up.
It is what it is. Life happens. We have our ups, we have our downs. And right now it just so happens to be somewhat of a down. But I'm excited. There is still an up. I'm excited for who we have today because she's all over the place.
I am today. I am too. Jesus. Y'all, this is our first since, you did a solo one last week. I was out of town on vacation. I still have vacation brain. So we're just all around. We're going to be looking to our guest today to keep us on track and energy up. And no, I don't want to put all of that on her. Y'all, today we are talking with Amy Weiss. You know her and love her. Hello, Amy. How are you?
Hello, it's so good to be here. I just love this, relaxed banter y'all have going on at the beginning of your podcast.
Because it really is like half the time he's out of the state. We haven't even spoken to each other yet. So it's genuinely like, good morning, how are you? What's going on?
Love it.
Goodness.
It's important. That element
so
of just
too.
kindness and just general conversation. Sometimes there's podcasts where it's just like, boom, 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 10 questions, answer it and go. Or if you don't have the time for the rest of the answers, you just have to go. So we just want to keep it a conversation. And that's what it is at the end of the day.
And I think we did this at the right time too, because with, COVID and everybody being at home, especially with the live show game, it's so different now because everybody's like, your internet's not always great. Folks have kids running into the room. So it's now is the time for the authenticity. Let's give it to the people.
I love it.
And speaking of, we have a beloved viewer of mine, Rhea. Good morning, sweetie. She says, hello, ladies and Francois. If you don't know Rhea, she runs the Seller App podcast called Seller Speak. She's pumping out content like I've never seen before. I'm very proud of her. So hi, Rhea, baby. Well, anyway, Amy, let's go on ahead and just get straight into it, dear. Tell us about you for anybody who is unfamiliar, which I don't know how.
Yeah, you're all over the place.
Just everywhere.
You were part of the motivation for me to go back to the gym, to be completely honest. I follow your story. So
Really? I love that, Francois. Thank you so much. I started posting videos of me working out at home when it was the middle of the pandemic and everybody was locked down, and so many people reached out to me and said, hey, it's so motivating for me. Please keep posting. And I've never been one to post videos. And then Danny McMillan reached out and said, Amy, we're doing this thing, work out every day, post your videos. Do you want to join us? And so then I was like, yeah, okay. And so because, normally people who CrossFit, the number one rule of CrossFit is to talk about CrossFit, right?
Of course.
Okay.
It's how it works. So, that's what my husband and I started doing. I'm retired military. So I was in the Air Force, and so was my husband, and that's how we met. And we live in San Antonio, Texas now. I started selling on Amazon in 2007, flipping my textbooks while I was in college. I saw that little button while I was scrolling through Amazon looking for used textbooks that said, sell yours here. So that's kind of how I got started. It was just a hobby, while I was in the military. And then I moved to Hawaii, or I got stationed in Hawaii, and I didn't want to do merchant fulfilled anymore, because back in 2007, it was not FBA, right? Everything was merchant fulfilled. People were selling used stuff. It was mostly media and books. And so then when I got stationed in Hawaii, I was like, I'm not really going to do the e-commerce thing because shipping is so expensive, right? So I kind of hung up my little e-commerce hobby, but I did start an Etsy store while I was there. I was painting wine glasses. I really like artistic stuff and creativity, and started painting wine glasses and beer steins. And I made a little Etsy store. So that was my beginning on Etsy while I was in Hawaii. And then when I moved to, my husband retired from the Air Force. I was still in civil service, and we left Hawaii, and I took a job here in San Antonio, Texas. And we've been here for 7 years. And in 2017, I had an idea for a product, and it was I'm a cat lady. You can see my little sign over here. I'm a cat lady, and I have 3 cats, and I didn't like cleaning the litter box, and I really didn't like the smell, even after you clean the litter box. So I developed a better way to clean the litter box and created a new category. And I never knew, I've got a whole bunch of business degrees and IT certifications. I'm a smart lady. But, none of those degrees really teach you how to bring a product to market from scratch. So I just started, thanks, Ryan. I just started kind of figuring things out and sharing my story along the way. And that's how I ended up also consulting and helping others. And that's how Amazing at Home, my consulting firm, was born. And now this is what we do full time. We help people bring their ideas to life, as well as help other people just getting their products selling more, marketing better, reaching their customer, connecting, that kind of stuff. And it's a lot of fun.
That's incredible. And let's not blow by this. Thank you to you and your husband for your service. Let's take a minute to acknowledge that, because that's incredible. And then also CrossFitting at home. Don't you also have children?
I do. I have 2 daughters, ages 11 and 14.
And you were able to stay motivated and complete those workouts at home? Because during quarantine, I just tried to work out at home by myself with my dog. And he was like, no, Mom, we're not doing this. Not today.
It's terrible though. I gained weight during the pandemic. I was able to keep it off before that, and I gained weight during the pandemic, and I was eating terrible. I was totally eating my feelings during the pandemic, because it's just like, oh, we're just stuck here. Chocolate cake sounds good.
Of course, a little cheesecake now and then.
Right, exactly. So, I think all of us were just eating terribly. I know like a lot of people that either lost weight or like got super fit during the pandemic, or they gained. And I gained because my normal workouts at my gym are very extreme, very, hard hitting, and you've got the motivation of other people dying around you. So you're like, I have to keep going. But when you're at home by yourself, I just didn't have the motivation to, I had the motivation to move my body because I knew I would feel better, but I couldn't get the kind of workouts in that I was getting at my gym. So I was so thankful when the gym opened back up, even like working out in little squares, wearing a mask. I didn't care. I was just like, yes, I'm so glad. Number 1, someone else is thinking about the workout and I don't have to come up with it. And number 2, to be back around other people and just like, have some accountability. Yeah. So
Oh God, working out with the mask on is hard. I did that for a long time, and I was like, and then I quit going to LA. Well, for 1, they closed, and for 2, I would just go to my apartment gym. And if anybody else was in there, I wore my mask. But the second they left, I was like, gym to myself. That might be naughty of me, but y'all, it's hard to run with a mask on.
Definitely.
It's also Atlanta. Atlanta didn't exist too much, or they treated it like it didn't exist too much.
Yeah. We're out here
mostly the
out.
state of Georgia.
Florida's worse though. Florida's worse.
Amy, tracking back to 2017, when you had this product idea, because so many different sellers, I think, go through different processes just based on, it could be all the previous experience in product development that they had, maybe coming from the more retail industry side, or it could be courses that they took or YouTube videos that they saw. How did you go about that product development? Being so fresh, I would imagine it was hard.
Yeah, school of hard knocks. I mean, okay, so to be fair, I am an MBA, and I, have a couple of undergraduate business degrees, and I'm a pretty smart girl. I've had many different careers. I worked in retail for many years, all different things. I've done many different things, but anyway, so I'm not afraid of figuring things out. But the thing that I ran into, the problem that I ran into, it's one thing to, say, I'm going to add, another handle to this coffee mug, and I'm going to contact a supplier, and we can do that pretty easily. There's no injection molding to be done there, right? It's pretty easy. But to take a product that's a completely new idea, never seen before, and to actually turn it into a real product on the market was a completely different story. So I just didn't want anyone to steal my idea. So I was trying to figure out the whole patent process. I was Googling everything and drafting up my own patents, contacting different patent attorneys. So that was like number one. And number two, I knew that in order to bring my idea to life, that I needed to have a working prototype of some sort. So I started by sketching my ideas. And then I built a prototype. I went to Home Depot and got a bunch of supplies. This poor old man who was helping me at Home Depot, I was like trying to be all secretive, like he was going to steal my idea. Now I know that like 99.9% of people will never steal your idea, because ideas are cheap. Execution is where it's at. And, so I always tell clients that now. I'm like, guys, because people will be worried the same way I was, that I'm going to steal their idea. They're like, but you have the means, you could take my idea and run with it. It's like, do you know how hard it is to start an entire company and a brand and all those things and, develop a product from scratch? Like, no, I'll give you ideas all day long. If you want to take any of my ideas that I have, you can take them and run with them. But yeah, so, I'm over here at Home Depot talking to this guy, trying to get the right materials together. And I built my prototype. And that's something that I teach other people now. Like the very first, before you go to a product designer, before you go to a design firm, which can be really scary and super expensive, but you really need to know your product and how it's going to work. Even if that means you develop a really small version of it. Like maybe you do like a mini version of it. If it's something big, right, and that intimidates you and you're like, how am I going to 3D print, this giant thing, well, you don't need to. You can print a mini version of it, right? There's a lot that you can do with, there's molding clay. I had a client come visit me this last weekend, and we built her entire prototype out of foam, out of, just construction foam. It's just like the basics. So I would say like the first step is just really, you have to know how your product works and how big it needs to be and how deep it needs to be and how, if it has a mechanism, how is that mechanism going to work before you go start talking to manufacturers? Because I was blind, right? I took my prototype to a manufacturer and I was like, can we do this? And I was in the US and taking my prototype to a US manufacturer, and they just looked at me like I was crazy. And they were like, yeah, this is cute, but you kind of need like CAD, you need drawings, you need tools, you need tooling, you need a mold. And I didn't know anything about injection molding or tooling or anything like that. So I was like, okay, time to figure it out. Luckily, I worked in cyber for the Air Force. So I worked in a building full of brilliant engineers. I had guys that had 3D printers at home. I had my good friend came up to me at work and he was like, I actually showed him, my design and my idea and my drawings and my prototype. And he came up to me at work and was like, that looks like a jock strap. I can turn that into something that we can, something that might work for you. So he came over and we did the whole 3D CAD together, like just sitting at my house, like, okay, I knew exactly what to tell him. I knew how deep it needed to be and how long it needed to be. My prototype worked. And my prototype was actually what kept me moving. Every time I wanted to quit, every time it got hard, I said, oh, there's no way I will ever go back to scooping the litter box again. There is no way that I won't bring this thing to market. So that's what kept me going, was that I was still using my prototype every single day. And it worked so well that I couldn't imagine other people having to live life without my product. And yeah, so that's kind of the motivation and how I got started, is just by prototyping and asking questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to, I was cold calling manufacturers, like, hi, I'm Amy Weiss. I have this idea, how can you help me? And some of them were like, yeah, sorry, we're not home right now. And others were like, okay, well, there's a 3D, prototyping service over here. And, I recommend you start over here. And so you never know. You just got to be relentless and just keep going and keep moving forward.
That's awesome. I'm so curious now as to what your product is, because I'm not a cat woman. I am allergic, but almost all of my other friends have cats, and I know they hate scooping the litter box. And I'm like, ooh, what is this?
Yeah, that's my job later today. So I will connect with you after this, so I could probably be one of your customers.
Yes. Well, you can just put litter box cleaner into Amazon. It's the only litter box cleaner on the market. So we created a new category. So you can just put litter box cleaner into Amazon and you'll find it. So
literally pulling it up on my phone right now, and I will send you the link.
Thank you. But I'm so glad that you bring up this concept of prototypes and understanding your product, because so many times I think, from the sourcing aspect and putting more of a supplier hat on, we do see sellers that just bring an idea, and ideas are wonderful, but like you said, ideas are really easy, really cheap also. It's all the development behind that, and suppliers will see, if you have a prototype, if you have a CAD design, if you have a 2D engineered drawing, if you know what materials you need, all these different aspects, and they'll take you a lot more seriously. I'm sure that was your experience as well. But how did you know that you even needed a prototype? Was that just from the manufacturers telling you, hey, this is the bare minimum?
Well, it was from a lot of research that I did as well. I've always carried around a notebook of ideas. I always say Pinterest was my idea first. I had that app. It was in my notebook, in my little spiral bound notebook that I carried around for years. And I was like, someone else did it. Darn. But again, ideas are cheap. So, but yeah, I just researched a lot. I've always watched like Shark Tank. I've always been a big fan of inventors and inventing things. And so, yeah, I think I knew that I needed a prototype because I was thirsty for more information. And because as I was going through my patent documentation with the lawyer, I was like, okay, I need to know that this is how this is going to work, because I don't want to patent something that, but I think it's interesting that you brought that up, Francois, because, now we help so many people develop their ideas, and a lot of people will come to us with ideas before they've even validated their idea. They're already moving forward with a designer. I've had people come to me with full on 3D, CAD designs or STL files that they're ready to talk to a manufacturer. And I'm like, this is not a good product. Like, this is not going to sell. You realize that this other main competitor in the marketplace is a reasonable alternative to your product. And it's a better alternative when you look at the market, so I think a lot of people, the pitfall that you can run into is falling too in love with your idea. And, it's expensive to develop a product. So something that we try to remind people about as well is not to overdevelop a product. Those are, I would say, the two big pitfalls. The first one is not validating your idea first. Like, so build an ugly prototype. Who cares? Like, it doesn't need to look great. Or build a mock-up of your idea, right? A mock-up that you could post in some kind of, discussion group, or you can have people over to do like a survey type of thing. There's so many great ways to do that now. But do that first and validate your idea before moving forward. Development can be expensive. You're talking $600 an hour minimum to hire a designer to bring your idea to life. And then not to mention the supply costs, all of that. So I would say first, validate that your idea is a good idea. Look at the reasonable alternatives in the marketplace. No matter how new or different you think that your idea is and how much you think that the market needs it, it may be, number one, too difficult to manufacture. And that's why I always love when people will come to somebody like me who's taken not just my product to market, but helped many others. And they'll come to me and they'll be like, if you just did this with it, it would just, and we have inventors. I'm a board member in my state inventors group. And, we have inventors that come all the time and they say, I made a better version of this popular product. I want to sell my better version to that company. It's like, do you not think that they thought of that better version already? People always reach out to me and they're like, well, you could just add this to your product, right? And it's like, no, I cut into tons of steel. It's an injection mold. I can't just make one small change, right? That's not how it works. So it's just really important that you have a prototype, first of all, and that you understand how your product's supposed to work. And then, you validate your idea. And number 3, that you start with minimum viable product. So if you've ever read Eric Ries's book, Lean
Amazing.
Startup, right?
Yeah. I recommend it all the time, Lisa.
He only gave it to me like a year ago and I'm still not done.
Lisa, you gotta get the book in. Yeah, it's so good because, we also have a tendency to overdevelop our products because when we have this cool idea and we really have keyed in on a differentiation that's so cool, then we start, and I did this too, I started adding thinking of all these different features I could add to my product. I was like, well, right now it just sifts like regular litter, but what if I could design it so that it could also sift pine and it could also sift this and, all these things in it. And my designer actually told me, he's like, Amy, you will never get it to market. He's like, let's go, let's focus, right? So now, I learned that from all the people that helped me, and now it's time for me to help all of you watching right now, listening right now. Don't overdevelop your product. Come to market with minimum viable product. Understand your manufacturing process so that you can really develop it easier and get that feedback first, and then further develop that product so that you can, really make it what it's meant to be without overspending and not being able to make it profitable.
And I'm glad that you bring up the overspending aspect because a lot of times also sellers might come into this with an amazing design. And I'm talking things that I would immediately buy. Like you bring it to market, I will buy. I will be your first customer, your first 5-star review, I promise. But they may come in with a $2,000, $3,000 budget. And that product itself requires, even one mold would cover that $2,000 to $3,000 easily. And then you have to think about the manufacturing costs and the minimum order quantities for that product. The more complex that it gets also, it tends to get a little bit more expensive. So there's so many different aspects to think about. But another aspect that we do see is that they may take one product and make 5 different tweaks to it. And they may not see it as tweaks. So maybe colors, maybe graphics or little small pieces that they think that's an easy thing to do. I did it at home in my prototype. How do you carry those conversations with them? Or I guess, how do you explain that to them?
Well, the first thing is to understand what really matters to your customer. Right? Your customer is going to pay whatever they feel is equal value to what they're getting in return. So but at the same time, you want to make it easy for the customer to choose you. So you don't want to put your super better, more awesome product on the market and you've added all these doodads and it has all these colors and it's amazing, but it costs you $30 to make. And your closest competitor that doesn't have all these things is selling for $15.99. And now you have to try and sell for $60 or $70 before you can even have a profitable or scalable product. And so I would just say, don't look at what value you're able to give and make it easy for the customer. So if you're adding all these extra colors and things, talk with your manufacturer, understand the manufacturing process. If those extra colors cost a lot more money, maybe we don't add all the colors in the beginning, right? Look at what your customer sees as value. If you're not sure, do mock-ups, do a PickFu poll, do a Google survey, do an Amazon Mechanical Turk survey. You can target specific people and say, take your competitor's product, the closest competitor, and say, okay, you've got this, and it's at this price point, because price point's also important. It's like, why would you buy it and how much would you pay for it, right? So here's my competitor's product. Here's this one. Which one, Pick Food Poll people, do you choose? And this one over here is $60 and this one's $30. It's important to understand how much the customer is willing to pay for those extras. And if you can, this is what I tell people all the time. All right, what if you make that one key change to that product and it doesn't cost you that much extra to make, and you can really develop a relationship with your manufacturer and really get it for an awesome price that's super profitable and scalable, and you can offer it for that $30 price point. Now put that same 2 products on PickFood and go, all right, you got this one for $30. You got this one for $30. This one has all the extra doodad that you really care about, and this one doesn't. Which one are you going to choose? And remember, you guys, pick things that you can protect. Pick things that you can protect. That is number one. That is true private label. You know, if you're just slapping your logo on it and you're changing the color, you can't protect that. Right. And so maybe you change it to a color that people really, really love and it's selling like crazy. Well, great. You should fill out your brand with products like that are super easy to just slightly differentiate. But your signature products, you got to protect them. You have to be able to have some mechanism I can't tell you how many clients I've had that have come to me that didn't protect from the very beginning, and they have something unique or cool or a different design, and now they got a ton of knockoffs and they got nothing they can do about it, right? Because it's already been on the market for so long. I mean, I can give you all kinds of examples, but I can't because they're clients, that have asked me to protect that information. But yeah, exactly. There's so many products out there. One that's popular that I actually met the owner of, or the original designer of, was the unicorn with eyelashes. She created that originally and it took off. She was a Canadian and she created it originally and she took off. She actually ended up giving up on the product because she had so many knockoffs, but that was her design.
Damn shame.
She could have copyrighted that. Copyright is like $65, it's like, so that's the thing. If you are going to take the time to develop something, look at what matters to the customer, what value they see in it. I can't tell you how many people come to me and they're like, okay, I got it. It's already being made with the manufacturer. And I'm like, okay, well, let's go over your numbers. We always go over the numbers. It's the first thing we do. And it's like, well, I'm hoping I can sell it for this much. You don't want to hope you can sell it for that much. You want to come to the market competitively. You want to offer more value and you want to make it easy for customers to choose you. Because if you have to pay on Amazon, now it's over $1 a click on average. If you got to pay to get to the top of that page, you better hope you're going to convert there, right? So if you've differentiated in a way that nobody can really see the difference, and you've paid a whole bunch of extra money for that with your manufacturer, you've just kind of overdeveloped a product, and you didn't protect it, now you've just created basically a charity. You're going to pay Amazon to sell your products, and that is not a fun place to be in. Versus if you go into it with, okay, I understand what customers care about. Number one, I've done my market research. Number two, I've differentiated in a way that matters to them, and I've protected that differentiation in some way, whether it's just a patent. You can use a patent agent. You don't have to use a patent attorney, right? There's many different ways, whether it's a patent or a copyright. You've protected it in some way, shape, or form. And then number three, you've made sure that you don't overdevelop it, that you really stick to minimum viable product, and that you've built a relationship with your manufacturer. You understand your manufacturing process, the materials that you want to use, the different options that you have. And so you have sourced it for an incredible multiplier, and you and your manufacturer are going to be laughing all the way to the bank. And that's the way to go, right? Because you're making customers happy. You're making your manufacturer happy because their goal is also, and I'm sure you guys would agree, manufacturer's goal is also to sell in bulk. That's what they do. They're a manufacturer. They're trying to mass produce something. So we want to grow with them. So there is no supplier that I don't go to and I'm like, hey, let's build this thing together, right? Like I already know the market viability. Here's my projections. Like you got to make money. I got to make money, but our customers got to be happy, and let's grow together, right? So, every major brand that we see that has brought something to market has done that. They have grown with a manufacturer. They have built strategic partnerships, and they have not overdeveloped something and tried to sell it for way more than reasonable alternatives in the marketplace.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this more so applies to services whenever you're pricing out your packages and things like that. But when I got my BBA, there was always the thing of like, whatever you want them to buy needs to be in that middle. You don't want to be the cheapest option. You don't necessarily want to be the most expensive, glamorous, whatever, because not everybody wants that. You want to hit that middle ground. You want to steer them where you want them, and you've got to kind of bracket yourself right there in the middle. Yeah.
Definitely.
And when it comes to those relationships with manufacturers, so I guess going back to the protection, when do you decide to protect your product? And how, I guess, what options are there to protect your idea?
Well, I have to give the disclaimer. Not a lawyer.
Not a lawyer.
we had Yael on here before.
Yeah, we'll link her video. She is a lawyer.
Yes, I love Yael. She's amazing. We have so many great lawyers in our space. There's just, so that's the thing. You need to surround yourself with good people. So Francois, back to your question, like, when do you protect your product? Is that what you were asking? So it really depends. What I would recommend first before you get into patenting is that you actually get into prototyping, right? So many people will jump straight to the patent, and I did that too. I was like, ooh, I like sketched up my idea. I did build an ugly prototype, and it worked really well. Like I built it out of hardware mesh and wood. And, it worked amazingly, but it still had a lot of things that I needed to improve. Like I needed to make the sides solid, and I needed to change different things around. And so I went through many developments after that initial prototype. So I would say wait until you have a really good idea of what this product is going to be. Right? Don't just go after your first prototype and then run to the patent office, right? Or go find a patent attorney immediately. I would say that first really kind of develop the design. In our program, we call this DIY prototyping, and that's where you're really going to get your ideas down. But then I would wait to protect it until after you then go to a designer and kind of get a decent mock-up done. Maybe even do some validation, right? A little bit of market validation. You don't necessarily have to show people your mock-up, but you can do market research. You can do a closed survey that asks, consumers what they think about X, Y, or Z. You can show similar products, ask that, do some market validation so that you understand what you're getting into. And then once you're like, okay, I've got a design down, it works. I have done some surveys, some market research on it. I know that it's going to do well in the market. And I have my idea for minimum viable product moving forward. So I understand what the manufacturing process might be. Because I think a lot of people just move forward without even researching manufacturing. And then they realize like, whoa, this is going to be too expensive. And now I've just paid $20,000 for a patent, and I'm like, what do I do now, right? So I would slow down, and I want you to keep moving forward because definitely we let our fears and stuff get in our way. So I want you to keep moving forward, but at the same time, move forward with confidence. So develop your prototype. Really kind of get into your first initial design, validate that in the marketplace, make sure that you're like, yes, okay, I know what I can sell it for. I know that the market is going to like it and choose it. I've at least done, a couple of surveys. Those are cheap and they don't take that long to do, right? You can do a PickFu survey for $50 in under an hour. Yeah. So you really have no excuse not to throw some kind of mock-up up there. Or even go into a Facebook group and, put a picture of something and be like, what do you think about this? Whatever, one thing that we used to do is assign our students, we'd give them an ugly product, a terrible product, just a picture of just a random product, and we make them go talk to strangers. We'd be like, okay, you need to go ask 3 people what they think of this and how much they'd pay for it. And they would get so much valuable feedback. It was like, oh, okay, I'm not so scared to talk to people anymore. And people are usually happy to give you their feedback. So before you go to protection, make sure that it's validated, you know what you can sell it for, and that you know and understand your manufacturing process and that you can source it profitably, right? That you're going to be able to source it at profitable margins. Because if you can't source it at profitable margins, you're going to need to sometimes go back to the drawing board and go, okay, I might not be able to, like with me, I was going to make my product out of hardware mesh and plastic. It was like a hybrid where the hardware mesh like clicked into the plastic, our first design. And I went and talked to a manufacturer and they said, okay, well, that's going to require a lot of manual labor and it's going to bring your cost up to this. Like the plastic itself wasn't. So then I had to develop the whole thing out of plastic. Well, that wasn't even in my plan. That wasn't in any of my early prototypes. And I was like, okay. So then I had to go back to the drawing board. I started going to stores, looking at litter box scoops. And I was like, okay, like how big are these slots? Like, so I had to redevelop the whole thing before even moving forward with my molds, right? So know that you're going to go through some processes. And if you don't go and understand your manufacturing process before moving forward, you may be kicking yourself in the foot when you've already drawn up a patent and paid for a patent that is a completely different design.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a great exercise that you have them do, is just take products and go ask people, strangers, for, their opinion on it. Do you think that maybe when folks are starting out, because a lot of people are really connected to their products and their ideas, that they're less likely to ask strangers for feedback or for their opinions because they almost don't want people to tear it up? It's like, well, I know this is good and I like it, so I'm going to do this.
Yeah, I think another key rule is to not ask your friends and family because they love you and they're going to always tell you nice things. You can ask them, but it's really important to get unbiased feedback, and so I know that it is an uncomfortable thing. I work with clients all the time that are developing cool things, and it's so crazy, the mindset thing that you go through, because the thing that we go through, it takes us 6 months to a year sometimes, depending on how unique the product is, to get it fully developed, right? From concept all the way to launch. But I was on a call with a client the other day, and he's about 6 months into his process, and he's gone through all the phases. The first phase, I love this one, where you go and you chase squirrels because you're like, okay, this is a really hard project. I'm going to go launch some Me Too products and I don't know. I'm just going to try to make a little money. And it's you just kind of building up walls. Although I don't think that that's a bad strategy. I think it's good to launch a few other products in the meantime to learn the process and to make a little money, because it may take you a while to develop your product, and that product might not have as good of margins as some of your other products that you could launch. So I did that in the beginning. I launched a bunch of other products for my brand, and some of those are some of my best money makers still today. So I wouldn't necessarily avoid that. A brand is usually more than one product, and products take a while to develop. It gives you something to do, keeps your mind busy. But the bottom line is, a lot of times we build up these barriers because we're afraid of our own success and we're afraid of failure. So, I think he and I were going through his list of suppliers, and we were looking at videos of the suppliers, and we were talking through it, and he said, should I get 5 more suppliers? And he already had 2 suppliers that were making a sample. And I was like, where's that going to get you? What are we going to get with 5 more suppliers? Are we just delaying the process of bringing this thing to market? Or, I said, when those 2 suppliers come back and give you samples, if they're not good samples, are you going to work with them to further develop that sample? Or are you just going to go, no, new supplier? And he's like, well, I'm probably going to work with them to further develop that sample. I was like, so why do you need 5 new suppliers?
Yeah.
And it's just because it's so scary. It's so scary, And then when I told him, I said, when you get your sample, because he's very nervous, he's like, well, what if people don't like it? What if I put this in the wrong spot? Or what if, I'm so nervous. And I said, well, when you get your sample, you're going to have a party. You're going to invite people over. And I want you to call these professionals that are in this industry from around the corner. I want you to call them up and be like, I'm developing this and I need you to come over. And I want your opinion because you have an expert opinion. And he just looked at me like I was crazy. But what if they don't like it? You're going to move forward with confidence no matter what. That's the most important thing. So I was like, you're going to have this amazing sample that works great. Get feedback on it, right? And that's how you're going to be able to move forward with your supplier in confidence. That's how you're going to be able to move forward with your product in confidence, you know. And I think that all of us go through this when we're developing a new product. We're like, okay, what if people don't like it? Okay, we'll find out if people like it, right? I took my prototypes to local markets. I went out to local markets here in San Antonio, took my prototype, invited people up and said, hey, you know, do you have pets? You know, just started a conversation. Do you have pets? You know, hey, you know, check this out. You know, and I did little demonstrations, and some people didn't like it. Some people were like, yeah, I don't really like to lift my litter box. That wouldn't work for me. And other people were like, how do I get this? Like, is it available now? Like, how can I buy it? Like, and that's when I brought out my little MailChimp list on my phone, and I was like, sign up for my launch list. I got you. So, you know, get out there. People, get out there. Don't be afraid, even as you're developing a product, to build your audience ahead of time. I think people get so nervous about that, but don't be afraid to get that feedback and get it going.
That's great.
We've also seen the other side where it doesn't seem so much scared to launch their product, but it's scared that they're not getting the absolute bare minimum price, or that they could find a price that's 5% lower than, you know, whatever a different supplier quotes them. Very much treating it like speed dating instead of, you know, hey, let's go on a few dates, build a relationship here. If it works, it works. We can both grow together.
Yes. I think what I try to remind people so we always go for a minimum 7x multiplier. So that means, but there's a rule for that. So a 7x multiplier means that if I source it for $10, I need to be able to sell it for $70. But you need to go in knowing what you can sell a product for competitively. And then if you can't source it for $10, I wouldn't say, of course, I want you to find 3 or 4 different suppliers, because it's an interview process, right? But it's a long-term relationship. So, you know, interview your 3 or 4 suppliers, and the ones that are willing to work with you on price. You know, you need to get to that 7x multiplier at scale. Not when you're ordering container loads full, not when you're like, okay, I'm testing the market. Can we make 1,000 of these? Right. No, at container loads full, you need to be at that minimum 7x multiplier. And so from the very beginning, you know, and that's what I always tell people, before you give your supplier your designs, before you give them the specifics, find a supplier that makes a similar product and sit down with them and have a talk with them about that similar product. And see, you know, at scale, look at what you could sell that similar product for. Look at what you would need to source it for at scale to get that minimum 7x, right? And talk with that supplier and build a relationship and see, like, how could you differentiate it? How could, you know, talk with them about it and see if they're even a good partner for a developed product. You're going to discover if they're a trading company and they're not a manufacturer at all, which nothing wrong with the trading company. If you're just getting a stock product, sometimes you can get a better price through a trading company. Right. So don't rule out trading companies, but if you're developing a product, talk with your manufacturers. So I always recommend that you sit down with your manufacturers and you have kind of a nice talk with them, like face-to-face video chat. Sit down, talk to the people that are in charge, not just a salesperson, because the salesperson is not going to be able to give you pricing. They can get fired for that, right? So I always ask for the boss. I'm the boss of my company. You're the boss of your company. We're going to talk together. I don't want to talk to little Miss Susie in sales. I want to talk to you. You're the live out, you and me, we're going to have a conversation, right? I want to know if you're my long-term strategic partner, right? So it's a win-win situation where we both look at an existing product that they're already making. We have those discussions, and I go, all right, well, my target price is here at scale. So when I'm ordering a 40-foot container from you, I expect to be able to get it for this price. Can we work together to get to that price? And if we can't, if that supplier shows no wiggle room, or they're talking like they don't understand how to actually develop or manufacture that product, or they're not comfortable with changes, then they're probably not a good partner for you. right? So that's how I vet suppliers first. And then when I have a really good discussion with the supplier about all different changes we can make, all different things we can do, and I know that they're willing to give me one of their existing stock products at scale for a really great price, and we're willing to work together, then I know they're a great partner. And that's when I can sign my contracts, I can send them my designs, and we can get into business together. They're a good partner for me, right? So that's the big thing. But I would agree, Francois, we don't want to speed date. That's not what this is about. It's not about the cheapest price. It's about who is the best strategic partner for me, who's willing to work with me with pricing at scale, right? And who is going to be a better like long-term development partner, especially when you're developing a product. You want somebody who has some experience, has good quality control, has the right certifications. You know, nowadays, Amazon is really, really, they are having to match some of the bigger box retail stores with certifications for products now. They're really, you know, the government's kind of coming down with the hammer on Amazon for that. And so I'm seeing people in the baby niche and all kinds of different niches that are now having to put up certifications that they didn't have to before, that they were able to kind of like just get ungated and then move forward. So it's really important that that we have suppliers that are professional. And sometimes you have to pay for that, right? You need a supplier that pays attention to quality control. You need a supplier that's that has some development experience, that can uphold a contract. If they're in financial trouble, like, you know, I have a Chinese attorney, and I always have him check their financials. I have him draw up the contracts. I have him communicate with them, and I have him check all the signatures, because every single contract to this date that I have signed with the supplier in China has been signed incorrectly, has not been signed with their official stamp, will not be held up in China. So that's why I think it's important, no matter where you're sourcing from, India, China, Taiwan, wherever, you need to understand the laws of that country. You need to make sure that you have, it's just like yesterday on my podcast, we had someone that was talking, Kevin Sanderson was talking about expanding internationally. And he said, you know, you don't hire an accountant in the US to take care of your taxes in Canada. You need an accountant in Canada, right? So either work with a sourcing company that understands the laws of that country and already has a presence in that country, or make sure that if you're going to go it alone, that you have the proper representation and that you understand your manufacturing process and you know who you're talking to is who they say they are.
I mean, a lot of what you described just sounded like being serious before getting serious. So being serious about your product, understanding it, knowing your financials, which is so important. Like knowing, you know, how much you have to invest in molding and tooling and development, right? Because suppliers, at the end of the day, they're taking a risk on you just as much as you are on them. They're going to spend their time. The better the relationship is, the more tweaks and even free samples that you might get for free shipping, where they say, hey, you know, this is a third prototype. I really think this is the best one. I want to get it to you quick. I'll expedite the shipping for you. So, I mean, there's so much more that goes into the relationship building. Do you help your clients at all with that relationship aspect of it? Because it is, I would say, the most important part. Aside from just being transactional and negotiating, developing that relationship.
Yeah, we actually have a whole section in our course that's all about manufacturing, understanding manufacturing processes, and how to have those conversations. So we have like supplier discussion worksheets, we do mock-up supplier discussions, and then I actually have meetings on with my client suppliers, with them on the phone. So, and the big thing that they take away from those meetings, they always tell me, they're like, Amy, you had so much fun. Like, you know, you're talking to them about like what food you love from their province, and you're talking to them about their family, and, you know, and that's the thing is, it's a relationship. You want to get to know them. You know, they don't want to go into this. I can't tell you how many times I've been at like Canton Fair and talking with the boss in the booth, sitting at the table. You know, I was trying to source some poker chips, and I'm talking to this this boss lady, and she's amazing. She's owned this factory for like, I think 20 years. And she's made poker chips for like the World Series of Poker. And, you know, and she just looks so unassuming, you know, of course she's Chinese. She looks like she's 12 and she's, you know, a factory owner. And, you know, she was just so much fun to talk to. And her and I were sitting down and we were discussing this product that I was developing. And, you know, we were talking different options and everything. And somebody walks in the booth, and there's a lot of Amazon sellers that go to Canton Fair, you know, and they have no idea. They don't go with a plan. They don't go with any knowledge of the manufacturing. Most of them just look for ideas, and then they come back and put it in Jungle Scout. And it's like, no, so we do it differently. We go with what we're looking to source, and we understand our manufacturing processes, and then we go have conversations. And the deals that we make at Canton Fair are incredible. I mean, I took one of my products from, it was at like a 6x multiplier, and I took it to 14x, just going to Canton Fair and developing a relationship with a great supplier.
Good.
Yeah. And it's really, so here I am sitting in this booth talking to this amazing lady who's just got, you know, so much experience. And, you know, and somebody walks in the booth and they ask, they go, oh, excuse me, how much is this? Like they're shopping at Walmart, you know? No. But anyway, how much is this? And she gave him a price like 6 times higher than she gave me a few minutes earlier.
Yeah. We see it all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Minimum order quantities too. They just don't want to deal with it.
Never start the conversation with minimum order quantities, right? Like, why would you start the conversation with the supplier saying, how little can I order from you? You know, like, how about get to know them? How about, you know, I was on a negotiation session with a client the other day, and he went straight for the pricing. And I was like, okay, wait, before we get to pricing, can I just find out more about you? Will you show me around? And we were on WeChat. They show me around the factory, everything. I was like, oh, that's so cool. We actually found out that what my client was sourcing from them, they didn't make any of it. They made everything. They were outsourcing everything that they put together for him. They didn't make anything. And I was like, oh, wow. So you actually make this, this, and this over here, and everything in the kit you didn't make. And they're like, yeah, no, we didn't. That's what he asked them for, right? So here, and I was like, okay, if we were to swap out some stuff with the stuff that you make, what would the price difference be? And it was totally different, right? So just if you don't know what they make, if you don't know what they do, you know, it's just so important. I think that the biggest takeaway is that that my clients have when we do supplier discussions together is that it's all about that relationship building. We don't actually talk pricing. If you go visit your factory in China, or you go visit a factory in China, you'll spend most of the day together learning about each other, drinking tea or going to lunch before you even discuss the manufacturing process or see the production floor, or, you know, go into the boardroom and discuss your actual pricing and your deals. Because, you know, it is about relationship building. So even now, when we're kind of stuck, we're not able to really go visit our suppliers right now, I try to encourage people to recreate that experience as best as possible virtually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, it's important to, and again, I always bring it back to this just human version of relationships, right? You date a little bit, you find out if you want to get serious, you get more serious. Let's say you're talking pricing, you're talking, hey, what customizations can I make? What's the molding and tooling? But all that's before you get married, right? Before you sign that contract, before you're going to be with them long-term, you're going to be through your ups and your downs. And so with that, do you have any, I guess, downs with your current suppliers that you just had to work through instead of just finding a different supplier all around? Because now it seems that it does become more transactional. Everyone sees all the options on Alibaba and they say, oh, I could just go find a different supplier for cheaper and better. And they're going to be so much, the MOQ that they have, they're so much better in the pricing and the products that they make. But how do you manage those issues? I see them as opportunities. I don't know how you view them, though.
So it depends. Sometimes it is better to go find a new supplier. Sometimes if you have already built a relationship with your suppliers, what ends up happening, there's a lot of turnover at many factories, especially after Chinese New Year. This is something that they're really struggling with. The workforce is changing in China. So it's important to understand what's going on at the factory. And especially like after Chinese New Year, don't skip the inspection, people. Do not skip the inspection because it's a lot of turnover and those suppliers are really struggling, right? Mm-hmm. But you don't know what's going on at that factory. So if you've built a relationship, which that's rule number one, if you haven't built a relationship, see rule number one, right? But if you've built a relationship, and this has happened to many folks in our program because they are developing relationships and they are developing unique products and they do have relationships with their suppliers. Some other suppliers are just increasing the prices on them and they're not really giving them specific, they're giving them things like one of our people recently said her stuff went up and their reasoning was raw materials. But she went and looked at the open market price for her raw materials and they hadn't gone up. So when she pushed back and said, okay, I understand you're paying more for these raw materials, but the market price on those raw materials hasn't gone up. So what's going on here, right? Okay. And then the other thing that some suppliers like to throw at you is the exchange rate, right? Well, the exchange rate, okay, well then I'll pay an RMB. So that's the thing is, of course, develop those relationships, but also realize that there's turnover at factories, that you may be working with one salesperson that's got certain numbers and maybe you've never even talked to the boss. Maybe you don't actually know what's going on and what level you're at. I had another lady, she did a factory audit. She was talking to a supplier that one of our people on the ground in China had found for her. And everything looked good. The samples were very professional. She did a factory audit. The person that she was talking to was nowhere in the staff for that factory. So the thing is, it doesn't make the factory bad, right? Mm-hmm. But you don't always know who you're talking to or who you're dealing with. There's no real way to know that unless you go to China yourself or go to India yourself or wherever you're sourcing from and really build those relationships, right? Like in person. And then, just double check everything contractually. But the bottom line, what I want to get back to, Francois, is number one, yes, I always would say, well, let's figure out why. Let's work together. Okay, pricing is going up for you, but my competitors aren't changing their pricing, supplier, right? So I still got the golden rule of negotiation still applies. I need to make money, you need to make money, and our customers need to be happy. That's got to happen no matter what. So if your prices are going up and you're raising the prices on me, we need to work together. Maybe there's another element of the product that we could change. Maybe we could change the packaging and we'll save money there. But see if your supplier is willing to work with you. A lot of times they are. And you should definitely take the time to see if you can work it out. But if they aren't, sometimes it is better to find a new supplier, because the one I was telling you about where they were saying that her raw material, and she's crushing it. She's doing so well. And she's getting into many more designs of her product and variations of her product. And she found a new supplier that is just like, the order numbers are better. They're more professional. The pricing is amazing. So sometimes it is worth it to look and find another supplier. And other times it's, but first, before you do that, go back to that relationship, see what's going on, actually dig into the reasons and see if you can work together to find a solution. Because that supplier doesn't want to lose you either, but sometimes a supplier can show you that they don't care whether they lose you. And then it's time to move on.
Just like relationships.
Just like relationships. Yeah. And that's why it always circles back around to that. And I think in 2020, it was really accentuated where everyone was seeing, obviously increased lead times, raw material prices were increasing for a lot of different industries, not by the multiples that I've heard some people say, like 3-4 times, but like 20 to 30%. And then we did see some currency fluctuation. The average is like 2% plus or minus 2%, where a factory goes, that's fine. We're accounting for that 2%. But if it goes, up 15, 20, 30%, that is a conversation where you could, just say, hey, could we pay in RMB? And you could use something like ping pong, convert your money in RMB and just pay them there. Shout out to Ryan Kramer again. yeah, that relationship, I just hope, and it's definitely a sign of maturity. And I'm so glad that you help your clients out with just the supply chain aspect, because it is a sign of maturity that e-commerce is no longer just Amazon sellers. They are the retail brands that need to develop very solid supply chains. Without supply chain, you have no product. Without any product, you have no clients. You have no clients, you have no money. So it's just such an important aspect to it. And I really do appreciate you just highlighting that one piece to this grand scope of, just general supply chain.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yes. And let's talk about your consulting. I mean, this in itself should be considered like a free 1-hour consulting session. You gave so much incredible information, but on your site, it even says start, build, and grow an e-commerce business on Amazon and beyond. Like you just said, Francois, it's more than just Amazon sellers. So let's learn a little bit more about Amazing at Home. And who do you work with? Because it says start. Do you work with like brand new, fresh folks? Do you prefer they already have something? I mean...
So our key customers are inventors, people that are like have never done anything before and are looking to learn the business side. And then people who are looking to start new brands or develop new products, and existing brands who are looking to grow their lines and grow on Amazon and beyond. So we do have a retail side. We help people also expand into retail. I have a retail partner, Talor Offer. And we have tons of relationships with buyers of bigger retailers and some smaller retailers as well, and subscription boxes. So we do help our clients everywhere from concept to launch. So our program is called Concept to Launch. And we have a graduate level course, basically. And it's over 50 hours of training with worksheets. I was an instructor in the military for 18 years. So I'm very good at taking really tough concepts and teaching them at a 3rd grade level. So I got you covered. No matter how hard it is, we can break it down in a way that you can understand. And so what's unique about us is that we teach from ideation, how to actually do market research instead of just like finding products on product research software, right? Anyone can learn how to do that. You can watch YouTube videos, you can learn how to do that, but it's not easy when you do. Let's say you find this little unicorn on product research software and you're like, okay, well, I think that I should really change it like this. And now you're stuck because you don't know how to keep the price down, how to talk to a manufacturer. You don't even know how to find a manufacturer outside of Alibaba, which, oh, by the way, you guys know Alibaba is a lot of third-party posts of not necessarily, suppliers that you're dealing with there. So you're not really sure how to do that. And so that's where we come in and we really take you from concept all the way to launch and teach you along the way. And then, so we have our courses. We also teach things like Google Ads for Amazon. I think we're one of the only people in this space that teaches that because external traffic really does a better job of ranking you on Amazon. We teach Amazon PPC, we teach Amazon launch. But it's really about helping people connect, understand their brand and their business, connect with their customers in a better way, right? Do better copywriting, better marketing, and then understand how to build a real brand from concept all the way to launch, whether they have an existing brand and they need to scale that up and they're not sure. Like a lot of people will launch one product and it'll do well and then they just feel stuck. So they're like, okay, I have this brand and I have this one product, but I don't know where to go from here. Many people that come to me for launch calls, so I do consulting, right? So a lot of people will come to me and they'll say, well, I already have a product. I'm good to go. And I just need your help with launch. And we'll sit down and we'll talk about launch. And I can't tell you when I say, hey, I need you to have 3 forms of external traffic. Most people in the e-commerce space have no idea who their customer is. They know about the product. They know about the bad reviews on other products, but they don't know who that customer is that buys that product and where that customer hangs out. And in business, we call that a target market analysis. And you can absolutely find those things out before you launch your brand. And you can sell so much more to that same customer if you understand them. So So yeah, that's the big thing that we do, is just help people with consulting. We also help them with every step along the way from concept to launch, and then expanding beyond Amazon. And we have clients all over the world. We do help people on Amazon UK, on Amazon Canada, Amazon Australia, Amazon US, as well as, like I said, those that are either brick and mortar looking to get into e-commerce. You know, I've trained staff of agencies before. I've trained staff of brick and mortar brands looking to get into Amazon, you know, because it's more about business. I really specialize in helping you figure it out, helping you have a strategic path. In the military, not only was I an instructor, I was also a planner. So my job was to take giant objectives, giant visions, and turn them into executable plans. So I got that in the bag. Like, I'm good at that. I can take your big vision and I can give you a strategic map to get from point A to point Z and help you understand the steps that you need to take along the way and keep you motivated to keep moving forward. And so that's kind of like our little niche in the space. I don't know that many consulting firms in the Amazon space that focus all the way from concept to launch for actual product development. So it's exciting to be, you know, in that space and be able to help people. And, you know, it's really cool for me because I get to scroll through Amazon and I get to see that, you know, we've helped hundreds of brands now, and we can see them on every page. You know, it's just like, oh, remember them? Oh, that's so awesome. You know, it's like our little family, like scrolling through Amazon, you know. So it's a lot of fun. We also do listing optimization, product photography, that kind of stuff. So yeah, and then we teach that as well. So we teach people how to do their own listing optimization. That was actually how Amazing at Home got started, was me writing listings for other folks. I was raising money to pay off my molds. They were so expensive. But yeah, that's how we got started. So we have a special passion for copywriting and SEO.
That's awesome. And for everybody listening, or if you're watching, the website is up on the screen. It is amazingathome.com. Of course, we're going to link that in the description of the video and of the audio. And then you have a podcast too, right? Let's just go ahead and throw the name of that out there as well, and get you a little bit of traffic over there too.
Oh, thank you guys so much. So I co-host the Seller Roundtable with my co-host Andy Arnott, the founder of Seller SEO Software. And we've been on there for a couple of years now, where I think we just recorded episode 109. And we've had some pretty big hitters. We've had like Mike Michalowicz and Neil Patel on our podcast. And we have lots of great guests. And we just talk about everything related to e-commerce, business, ranking, you know, SEO, nerdery stuff. And you know, all that kind of stuff, as far as like, it's kind of like a well-rounded e-commerce podcast. So you'll find all sorts of bits and pieces there, and you can listen to that at sellerroundtable.com.
Perfect. And we'll link that in the description of the video and of the audio as well. Oh, Amy, thank you so much. This has just been so wonderful and so informative. We really can't thank you enough for coming on the show with us today.
Thank you for having me. It was so much fun just talking with you guys. I love, you know, I love this business and manufacturing, and I love what you guys do in terms of helping people connect with their manufacturers, teaching them some of these things that they need to know. So it's been wonderful to connect with others that are in a similar area of the space, where we can work together to help people just develop better relationships and make better products, right?
Absolutely. And if you guys liked what you heard or saw today, please be sure to give us a like, comment, subscribe, thumbs up, ring the notifications, all the things, share with your network. Again, like Amy just said, we're all about helping everybody build and grow and connect and scale your businesses, and just learn more from leaders in supply chain and e-commerce like Amy Weiss. So Amy, thank you again so much, dear. It was a pleasure. And we will talk to everybody later this week.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.